Okay. All right, so just some opening statements here. Obviously, we're in game week, which it seems like it's been forever, but we're excited to be in that mode again. It's my favorite time of the year because it's the only time of the year where I actually have a consistent schedule and I can say no to people. And so that's my favorite thing to do. And so we're just, we're on our Monday. We are doing a little bit different game week schedule this year. We're practicing a light practice on Monday, kind of a normal Tuesday, normal Wednesday, no practice on Thursday. That'll be our day off, and then a light practice on Friday before we depart. Kind of getting in a little bit later to the venue and not really worrying about spending a whole lot of time in the hotel and hurry up and wait type of mentality. Just get there, eat, say a few words on Friday night, go to bed, get up in the morning, let's get ready to go. And so that's kind of what our approach has been, and it'll be interesting to see how this affects our guys moving forward. Hopefully giving them that time off 48 hours before competition and then activating them on Friday will be beneficial for them in terms of their legs getting back and being a little more fresh on game day. Certainly the challenges that a place like Lubbock present, it's a long trip. It's about a 2-hour and 40-minute flight. And so, that's a little bit different for us. A lot of times regionally, we don't have to travel quite as far, although this year's kind of the exception. Certainly when you're playing a university that has 21,000 more undergrads than the university that you are coaching at, they've got about $70 million more in their athletic budget than we have here at Montana State. I would be the lowest paid coach on their staff on base salary by about $40,000. And so that gives you maybe a little bit of perspective. There's going to be 43,000 more people in the stands than if we had a sellout here at Montana State, and they got 22 more scholarships. And so I think we're excited for the opportunity to go down and play against a Power 5. We're appreciative of the opportunity. I think that two things that are kind of a reality at our level. One is that you have to play some games like this because it does help our athletic program as a whole, and it helps our football program. It's an opportunity for us to get our brand on a national scale against a Power 5 opponent. And I think it's important for us to put ourselves out there and challenge ourselves. But we understand the realities of this too. It's not, the pressure really is not on us. I think the expectation when you play a game like this is that whoever the opponent is at the Power 5 level should be able to handle whoever they're bringing in. And so we just kind of take this approach as it's about us. We got to control the controllables. I think you saw some great examples of first game jitters last week when you watched the Miami and the Florida game. The things that show up in a first game, tackling because you haven't had a chance to go live a lot, penalties because you haven't had a chance to go live a lot. You saw that the turnovers certainly was impactful in that game, and then special teams were also impactful, not just the fake field goal, the fake punt, but the muff punt, and those things always show up in a first game. They always do. And the other thing about a first game that I think is interesting too is I think probably both sides with Coach Wells, that being his first year here, and us still having some competitions that were decided, but they're very tight. I think you'll see both sides play a lot of guys. I think that's something you'll see. I would not be shocked to see Jet Duffy play some at quarterback by series. And I think that's something that you would expect in a first game, especially when you have a new staff. I have a ton of respect for Matt Wells. I think he did a tremendous job at Utah State University. I've known Matt for a while. We've actually talked a couple of different times about some staff things, and I think that he was an excellent choice for Texas Tech. The one thing that I think he did a tremendous job, when you look at his time at Utah State, he was losing coaches every year to different Power 5 programs. And it seemed that he was able to kind of replace those guys and really not miss a beat. And you look at his coordinators, you look at David Yost, a guy who started off at Missouri, has been at Washington State, who's been at Oregon, was with him at Utah State most recently. I think he's a kind of a pass game guru. I mean, they're really very similar to Coach Leach and what they do in the pass game at Washington State, but he's an up-tempo guy. You're going to see a ton of speed in terms of not just their skill athletes, but also how fast they go. I know that's one of the things that they try to do is run a lot of plays. They're not overly complex in the run game or the pass game, but they execute at a really high level. And, I think that they're more balanced maybe than a Washington State team would be in terms of their run-pass percentage. Skill athlete-wise, TJ Vasher's a matchup problem. He's a huge guy on the perimeter, but they've got some legit speed guys. They have a couple of transfers, a kid from Nevada and a kid from Louisiana Monroe, who both put up exceptionally high numbers at those two institutions that they were at before they came to Texas Tech. Their offensive line is, on paper, certainly one of the strengths of their team. I think it was 114 combined starts between those guys up front. And so that's something that, obviously we're going to have to be aware of. We're going to have to roll our guys up front and try to stay as fresh and as healthy as we can throughout the course of the game. Started quarterback, I think, has been named Bowman for them. And, we do have film on him from a year ago. He missed some games with injury, and Jet Duffy came in. I think they've kind of got a nice 1-2 punch with the Utah transfer at running back, and then the young man that they had there last year, the 26, who's kind of a scat back. And so, I think it's going to be interesting. I do know that they're going to incorporate a tight end probably more than they did under Cliff at Texas Tech, and so I think that'll be interesting. But like I said, I think Coach Yost is as good as there is in terms of being a play caller, can dial stuff up, and that tempo is really going to be a problem. On the defensive side, Coach Patterson's a good football coach. Really good football coach, has Texas ties. I think it was an awesome hire even at Utah State. And then obviously him coming back to Texas as a former Texas high school football coach brings a lot of credibility with him. And when you look at what they were able to do at Utah State, really as much as they were able to be dominant on offense and put up huge numbers, it really was related to the fact that they led the nation in takeaways. They had 32 takeaways a year ago at Utah State. You watch Utah State play, very fundamentally sound. Kids run to the ball and play with great effort. And that's when I turn on a team and watch them play defense, that's what I'm looking for. And I think you see that a ton with the guys that they have there. When you look at personnel from Texas Tech returning, 53, probably the best guy up front on the defensive line. 96, another very good active player for him on the defensive line. Number 1, returning leading tackler for him at linebacker. And then number 7 stands out at safety. And so those are kind of the guys that you look at on all 3 levels. Certainly that's going to be an interesting matchup for our offensive line against some of those Big 12 talented front 7 players. Then you look at special teams, that's a huge unknown. But again, I look at what he did in terms of bringing a guy like Mark Tomerdahl, who is one of the more well-respected special teams minds in this country, and he's been everywhere. I mean, from Alabama, Texas A&M, Cal, you name it. And this guy's very, very good at what he does. They're going to be starting, it looks like, a true freshman long snapper and punter and a redshirt freshman place kicker. But I know Coach Tomerdahl will have those guys fundamentally sound, ready to go, and they'll execute at a high level. And so with all that being said, take any questions.
With a new coaching staff, how do you kind of approach the film study and the preparation? How do you kind of approach it?
It's been interesting because, it's that combination of trying to look at the personnel from Texas Tech and the scheme from Utah State. One thing I will say is I really don't think they're that different. A lot of the pass concepts that they ran at Texas Tech under Cliff are very similar to what Coach Yost has brought. And so that part of the game, I would imagine, has not been a big transition for him. I'm guessing offensively it's been fairly seamless. It might be some different terminology, but a lot of the pass concepts are different. The one thing that they have had to probably practice on is going fast. And not to say that they weren't an up-tempo offense previously, but not to the degree I think that Coach Wells and his staff want to go on that side of the ball. And then even on defense, they based out of a 3-4 last year. I think you're going to see a 3-4 for the most part with quarters coverage behind it when we play these guys. You're going to see some what we call fire zone and bogus pressures on mixed downs. And when we get to third down, they're going to turn it loose. They're going to be very aggressive on third down. That's kind of stylistically who they've been, and I don't really anticipate that changing.
You mentioned Bowman. He was having a really good freshman year before he got hurt. So what do you like about the way he plays quarterback?
I think it's accuracy and decision making. Those are the things that it comes down to, and so I'm sure that's something that's carried over. They had an exceptionally good quarterback at Utah State a year ago. I mean, that kid was really good, and I'm guessing that Bowman has the ability to be as good or better a player. And it's all about surrounding himself with good people, and I think it starts with a great offensive line, and they have that. So I'm sure he's going to have a certain comfort level with that. And then they've gone out and they've gotten some transfers, and they have some guys in the program that they feel like are very good targets. But one of the things I think that'll really help Bowman is, again, I mentioned this a moment ago, their commitment to being more balanced. The run game is always the quarterback's best friend.
You've coached in so many big venues. How do you relay some of your experience to your team, and do some of the guys that you brought in from the FBS kind of help that experience? It
might help it a little bit. Certainly having guys that have been at Oregon, Virginia Tech, Washington, et cetera, that understand that the game is the game once the whistle blows. I mean, you want to enjoy the pageantry. I mean, really, that's why you do it. I mean, I talked about us being excited for the opportunity and appreciative of the opportunity. Part of that is to go to a place like that and to be able to see, hey, okay, this is pretty cool. But you can't be intimidated by it. You just got to roll with it. You got to enjoy it. You got to have that kind of that ambiance drill where you're taking it all in and, smell the hot dogs cooking and the barbecue. And, once the whistle blows, let's go play ball. Get your eyes where they need to be. Give great effort, and let's see what happens.
What's stood out about Tyree Gibson maybe in fall camp?
Well, I think it's a couple things. Number one, we've had kind of a little bit of a revolving door there with Munchie being on the shelf for a little bit. But I just have to give the kid a lot of credit. He just matured a ton. He's always been a physical player. That's kind of been his mindset. Even when he got here as a true freshman, he would throw his body around, but he was a guy that could, play cat coverage, meaning that I got that cat, you got that cat. Basically a man-to-man guy. And when you're playing zone schemes, he struggled because didn't have the foundation with that football intelligence. And so I think Coach Reisinger's done an awesome job of bringing him in, and he's been committed to coming in and putting extra time in to learn the scheme and master the scheme, because I do think he had the physical gifts. He's a 6-foot corner, and those guys are hard to come by at our level. And he's got good speed, but the thing that separates him probably is his toughness. He's a very physical player, and he's very competitive too. And so I think those things all kind of rose to the top. As I mentioned, you're going to see a variety of guys play, and so it's not like you're just going to see one guy out there. We need a lot of guys to see on film. And like I said, I'm sure Coach Wells is saying the same thing. We've got to see some of these other guys play, and that's how you're going to get better. That's how you're going to be able to truly get a gauge of where they're at. I mean, we are in the preseason. In the NFL, you see it all the time, right? Starters go for a little bit, and then you let the other guys play to figure out what you got. And so nowhere on our pyramid does it say that we have to beat Texas Tech to achieve our team goals, okay? We got to go down there, compete our tails off, hopefully get the game into the fourth quarter, and figure out how we can go compete.
How might a veteran guy like Damian Washington help Tyree along?
Yeah, Damian's always been – that's been his strength as a player, is his football intelligence. He's got a lot of moxie, a lot of savvy. I've said this a number of times, kind of understands his weaknesses and covers them up really, really well, can disguise coverage. And so him being almost a coach on the field, I even see him doing that in practice where he's pulling those young guys aside and saying, hey, on this, do this. And so I think he's just hearing it from a different voice, instead of Coach Ione or Coach Reisinger, it's, one of your peers, and oftentimes that resonates more.
What do you see, I know Tyrell Thomas kind of had to work himself into, missing a couple practices. What do you see his role in the defense?
He's a very good man-to-man cover guy, and is back to being 100% healthy, which he was not for the majority of last year, especially the tail end of the year. And teams targeted him. That was obvious. He had a hamstring injury, and he didn't even play against Incarnate Word or North Dakota State. And so we're glad to have him back healthy. He's kind of worked himself back into that rotation, and I know his goal is to be a starter by the time we're playing for real.
Can you speak to Nolan Askelsen's fall camp and kind of where he's put himself in this defense?
Yeah, I don't think it was his fall camp. I think it was his summer that put him in that position. He was committed to being excellent. And I'll be honest with you, I think Callahan O'Reilly was too. And those two guys almost fed off of one another. You could see Cal was coming in and getting extra work. Nolan was coming in and getting extra work. It was almost like they were spying on each other. If one was going to get that at work in, the other one was too. And those two guys pushed each other every single step of the way. And so I think that's, I think it just came down to a little bit more productivity for Nolan throughout the course of fall camp. And really Cal kind of came on late. You could see the light bulb came on maybe a little bit. He was transitional, Nolan, even though he played quarterback in high school, he also played linebacker, whereas Cal really just had that one season as a linebacker and was playing primarily behind his cousin, and so didn't get a lot of turns. And I think Cal's just going to continue to get better and better. And there's probably an argument to be made that at some point those guys are Mike and Will instead of backing each other up. But Josh and Michael Jobman will have something to say about that too.
Can you speak to your confidence in Josh Hill's health at this point?
Yeah, well, we don't know. We got to play. We've been really smart with him throughout the fall camp. He's really only live for one scrimmage and a couple of snaps here or there throughout the course of fall camp. And so the idea is not that he's going to go out there and play 80 snaps. The idea is that we're going to go out there and kind of put a pitch count on him, see how he's feeling at halftime, be smart with his body, and maybe roll him by series because we have so much confidence in Michael and Walker Cozy and Blake Flovin. We've got a lot of options at both of those inside linebacker spots.
With Nolan, did it almost surprise you how well he came in prepared? Or did you feel like he had a legitimate shot at the starting spot going into fall?
It was weird because we didn't have a spring ball. So it was really hard to say where some of these guys were that were freshmen coming off of their redshirt years. But Nolan flashed. Remember, he did play in 4 games for us on special teams. He made some plays on kick coverage. He had a block punt that resulted in a touchdown against Incarnate Word. So we definitely anticipated him as a guy that could have some impact.
I think it's supposed to be 109 degrees there today. It's gonna.
Who cares what it is today?
It's gonna plummet to 91 on Saturday.
Yeah.
But
I'll pack my parka. I'm anticipating it being a little chilly.
So add 15 degrees probably on the turf,
Correct.
So is that something that?
Well, I think the thing that concerns you the most is probably just the game day. The adrenaline gets flowing, and those guys kind of expend a little bit more energy in warm-ups, and that's where we've got to be smart. We might not be on the field very long for warm-ups. There's going to be 60,000 people there too, and that creates a little bit of warmth as well. And so the humidity's not really a huge issue in Lubbock. In fact, most days it's more humid here in Bozeman than it is in Lubbock. But the temperature is going to be warm. It's going to be 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's probably going to be around 110, 111 degrees on that turf, maybe as high as that. And so we've just got to do a good job of managing our guys, keep them rolling, be smart with them. Player safety is always going to be the thing that we pay attention to. If a guy needs to come out, guy needs to come out. And so, like I said, I know what they're going to do. They're going to try to go as fast as they can. I mean, the message has always been these guys are going to come down here from Montana, and they're not going to be in shape. They're not going to be able to handle the heat. It's very difficult for us to simulate it here. We don't have an indoor. I can't turn the heat on and water the turf down to try to create the steam effect. We had probably 2 days in the mid-80s, the entire fall camp that we were able to get on the turf. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a reality. I get that. But I'm probably less concerned about the temperature, and I'm more concerned about just our guys, the adrenaline that gets going in a pregame setting, especially for some of these guys that have never been in that setting before.
I know you knew Amandre for a while, but in what ways maybe has he developed since you first started working with him?
Amandre's a really hard worker. I mean, I knew he had a high football IQ because he was an excellent quarterback in high school. And so I wasn't really concerned about him picking things up. He comes from a football family. His dad played at Wyoming, played for a long time in the CFL. And, he's been around the game his whole life. And so the thing that's impressive about him is, he's the guy that shows up on all of our fundamental drill tape stuff, whether it's doing a special teams drill or how we get off a block or how we tackle. He's just a technician when it comes to those things. And so I think that's really helped his game.
I had a lot of players compare this game to Washington State. In your mind, what's the difference between the Pac-12 and Washington State and Big 12 Texas Tech? What's the biggest difference there?
I think probably depth. Washington State, they have a very challenging system to play against. When their quarterback, I think their guy went 22 of 22 against us, I believe. I think set a school record. So, but he didn't throw the ball deep on us. And so, you're going to have to give some things up. Your matchups aren't going to be favorable. I mean, clearly, like I said, this is an outfit that's going to have 22 more scholarships, a lot more resources. They should have bigger, faster, stronger athletes. And so the Pac-12 is really almost reverted to more of a defensive league. If you look at who's winning the Pac-12 right now, you got Utah and Washington playing for the Pac-12 championship, and they don't even score an offensive touchdown. Well, that's not happening in the Big 12. I'm telling you that right now. Okay, so they're going to score a ton of points, and they have to. And that's just the nature of that league. A lot of skill athletes on both sides of the ball. You're going to see twitchier guys on the defensive line, and you're going to see some fast dudes. I mean, there's going to be guys out there that probably ran, 10 flat, 10 200 meters in high school, and they can go by you in a hurry. And so I think the speed of the athletes, the size of the athletes, and the depth is the thing that you're going to see the most.
That Rover position, is that just a new name, or is that like a...
Yeah, we've actually called it Rover for a while. So, and we just actually put it on the depth chart. So, and I think Bill decided, he kind of decides what we call stuff sometimes.
Right. What do you think Casey's mindset right now is heading into his first start, and what do you hope just to see from him in his first?
Yeah, I think poise is the thing I want to see. But I mean, the reality is, he's going to be nervous, and he should be. I mean, for me to stand up here and say, "Oh, this guy's going to be calm, cool, collected, ice water in his vein," no, come on. I mean, that's human nature, and so what we got to do is we got to get him hit a couple times, and he's got to kind of shake it off and go play, and he will. I mean, the worst time for him is going to be from the time that we get off the field in warm-ups until he takes his first snap. That's going to seem like an eternity, and so, but that's part of growing up. I mean, I think about where you want you got a young quarterback who's making his first collegiate start, and he's doing it in that atmosphere. Everything after this is going to seem a little easier. We good? All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks.